Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Glad to have you back this week and for another great episode. This week I'm shooting this episode from my home. So for those of you that watch on video, we're not going to usually do this. And the great part is because we're moving studios and we've got a new studio coming soon. And so we've got a lot of things happening that are exciting. And, we're happy to be bringing you so many new changes and positive changes. And, but if you'll oblige me, these next, this week's episodes are going to come from my home. Maybe the audio is a little different than you're used to, or there might be something that's not perfect. That's because I don't have my amazing team with me this week that makes things sound so great as they do. This week I want to kind of take you on a different path. And so many, these episodes are all different sometimes. Sometimes I'm talking about, whether it's personal development. Sometimes I'm talking about a certain type of, quantitative, calculations. Sometimes I'm talking about marketing. And they're all going to be different based on, different things that I'm feeling that I really need to put out at the time. And this week something happened to me. And so much of success is actually got to do with qualitative things and not quantitative. And I've said that before in this podcast. And one of the things that people love the quantitative, right? Because it's the science of business. It's the science that we can all wrap our head around. We can all say, hey, put this much money in marketing. It'll have this much of an acquisition cost. It'll have this much of an average revenue. And we can wrap our heads around the science of a business. But qualitative sometimes is hard to quantify. But, if you read Financial Evolution, one of the things that I talk about is these 4 types of people. And so I had an amazing story come to me recently, and it blew my mind. And sometimes things come to you when they're supposed to come to you. And I get this phone call out of a blue, and I want to share this story, and it's really good for you no matter where you are at. So let me tell you about these 4 types of people, and then I want to talk through what that means for you in your life. So I've probably talked about in this podcast before, but I want to, for those of you that are new to the podcast or new to my philosophy, I want to talk about the 4 types of people. So I always say there's 4 types of people, and this is from experience over years and years and years. And the 4 types of people look something like this. There's the first type of person. The first type of person is what I call the poor me. The poor me is always struggling. The poor me is, they can't seem to, it's their dog just passed away and they're sick and they're overweight and their spouse just left them and, on and on and on. And no matter what happens, this cloud hangs over them. And then there's the second type of person. The second type of person is the help me, the person who says, I don't know how to do it, but tell me what to do and I'll do it. Just tell me, because I'm willing to put in the effort, time. I'm humble, hungry, and smart, and I'm willing to do it. The third type of person is the person that I say is the leave me. It doesn't matter what you do. And you know that patient too. No matter what you do, they're good. You could tell them that insurance paid for something 100% and that you could do it in 5 minutes and they still wouldn't do the procedure. Even though it would change their smile and radically change their lives, they just won't do it. And the fourth is change me. The people that no matter what, no matter how great they become, they just want to get better and better and better. And so we find ourselves with these people. Well, recently happened, I had somebody from my past pop into my life. Now, interestingly enough, we were at the same trajectory a decade ago. We were literally on the exact same trajectory. Now, some things happened, and by the way, winters happened to us all. And we were kind of experiencing some same things at the same time in our lives. And so I hadn't heard from this person for about 4 or 5, maybe it was even 6 years. And recently they reached out to me and said, hey, I'd love to connect. So I said, yeah, let's connect. What's going on? What's going on in your life? And when this person came to me, interesting, we were on the same path a decade ago, but how different our lives have become. And And so he ended up on this path, and I'm not going to get into his personal situation, but let's just say his path was not the path, same path that I've chosen, and same path he really wanted to be on. So success had not reached him in the way he thought. And by the way, he had past success. This is a person who had tremendous amount of wealth, who had done really well for themselves, but had kind of lost it all. And he had lost a lot of it because he was heavy into real estate at a certain time when real estate kind of bottomed out. And so fast forwarded today, I was lucky enough to sit down with this person, and we started having this conversation. And it goes back to so many things I've said on this podcast. And so I'm now at this person, and I'm looking at him, and I'm saying to myself, like, this person goes through the same thing that everyone listens to this podcast goes through. And it's the same place we find ourselves in all the time. We're constantly doing this. And it's one thing I talk about all the time. So many times I bring in the qualitative conversation, the personal development conversation, and it's like, it's easy to want to go back always to the quantitative. But I looked at this person and I said to him, the same thing my mentor was told once, was that if you will change, everything else will change. And what you have in life, you've attracted by the person you've become. What you have in life, you've attracted by the person you've become. Now, I want you to hear me on this, because whether you feel you're successful, there's nobody listening to this right now that I would actually walk up to you and go, oh, you've hit the top success you could possibly hit. No, we can all grow. And that's the whole thing, is the people that get into that change me mode, they just want to get better and better and better and better. And they always have these things in common. They're always humble. Like the most successful people I work with are humble. As a matter of fact, one of the greatest things I was told early on in my career is that never work with an egomaniac. They get people sued and they get people killed. And so the most successful people I work with are humble. Secondly, they're hungry. They're not complacent. They're hungry. And they're emotionally smart. And I also talk about the compound effect. And it's like interesting, as I was sitting in front of this person, I'm like, oh my gosh, literally everything that I teach doctors. Now, this person's not a doctor, but I was like, everything I teach, literally this person has missed out on. I wonder what it would have happened in his life had he have listened to this podcast so long ago, because he missed it. And everything in his life, by the way, you're listening to this right now, everything you have in your life, your home, your car, your relationships, everything is a product of the person you've become. Success attracts success. Struggle attracts struggle. Health attracts health. Caring attracts caring. Support attracts support. And so we find ourselves in this place where we have to look at this and go, okay, if that's true, then what happens is we have to look at, now, I want you to, now don't turn this podcast off. If you for one moment are listening to this going, well, I'm already successful, I'll turn this one off, maybe listen to the next one. I need you to stop right there. Because if you truly hit the amount of success that you want, what else do you want to accomplish? What else do you want to create? Because to have that, and as the great Jim Rohn once said, to have more, you simply become more. To have more, you simply become more. One of the reasons you listen to a podcast like this is because you're simply trying to become more. One of the reasons you forward a link to this podcast to somebody is because by having an abundance mindset and sending out a message of prosperity, you actually get to become more. By listening to a podcast like this and talking to somebody else about the information, you become more. And by becoming more, you attract more. You attract more success. The truth is, this is how, it's like I always say to somebody, like the universe conspires in your favor. all you have to do is become more. Now, what is more? Well, more is up to you. What is more, and I always say it's the compound effect, right? Because then people say, okay, Eric, I get that. I gotta become more. What the hell does that mean? What do I gotta do to become more? It starts with little changes day in, day out. It's going, I was saying to this person, I said, man, when was the last time you went for a frickin' run, man? Like, go for a run. You'll find that when you go for a run, you'll all of a sudden feel better. You'll eat better. And then when you eat better, you'll freaking maybe pick up a book. And by the way, what do you think I gave him? My book. I said, here, man, you need to read this book. The greatest things you can do is give someone a book. Hey, read this book. Come back to me. Tell me what you found. And so when we look at those things, then we say to have more, you simply become more. And you can do it by as simple as taking a run. You might say, Eric, is becoming a millionaire, a decamillionaire, centimillionaire, whatever you want to do. Like, what do I have to do to get there? What do I have to do to become that person? To have more, you simply become more. And you simply say, what is my next step? What do I need to do to become more? And sometimes it's as simple as going for a run down the street. It's as simple as grabbing your spouse's hand and sitting on the back porch. It's as simple as coming to a leadership seminar. And what happens is that what you'll find over time is that you will wake up and you will have transformed. And the thing about great change is people want it to be overnight, and that's just bullshit. Anyone who tells you that it happens overnight is lying to you. It's not the truth. Even Jeff Bezos was on the floor in his garage packing books for Amazon.com. Greatness takes hard work. It's the big granite ball. You got to push that son of a gun. And you got to realize it's what you do day in and day out, and the compound effect of that, and the habits you put in place for your life. And you can't rest on your laurels. If you listen to this, go, well, I'm already doing all that. It's not true. Then you have to say, what's the next step? What's the next thing I can become? What's the next circle I need to put myself in? Who do I need to be involved in? Because what happens is a decade of that. See, that's what people don't want to wait a decade. Eric, I don't want to wait a decade. I want to do it in 6 months. Look, man, it's what you become over a period of time. It's the person, you won't even recognize the person you used to be. And when sitting in front of this person, I realized that he made small little decisions day in, day out for the last decade that have brought him to what the Jim Rohn called mistake colossal. Take that in. Well, how do you become successful? It's as simple as a run a day. It's as simple as picking up the book. It's as simple as having a conversation with somebody of importance that can bring things into your life. And that's what happens, is that over a period of time of watching, or, going to leadership stuff, going to tower leadership stuff, reading books, taking in this podcast, taking in this information will transform your mind. You'll start thinking different. You'll act different. You'll be different. And what ends up happening is you'll attract different things into your life. And over time, you'll wake up and you'll become filthy, stinking rich. But not only that, but you will have impacted your kids, and you'll have impacted your team, and you'll have impacted your community. And you'll become a different person. But it takes over a period of time. And so when I sit in front of this person, it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, 2 people in the same spot a decade ago and made 2 different decisions. Now, some people you can't help. I remember a few years back, I had these 2 clients at a workshop one time. I had 2 clients that walked in, and, it was so interesting to me because, one client decided he'd fully engage with us and said, hey, look, and this isn't about selling you on our company. I'm just telling you, this is what happens in life. So this is a person one person decided to engage in our company, and the other decided not to. And that's okay. We all have our reasons for what we do, what we don't do. Now, interesting thing is this person who engaged with our company, literally within 24 months, the doctor had been burnt out for a while, had kind of been working as hard as he possibly could. And you know me, I'm talking about growth and scalability and adding associates. And so the doctor that decided to engage with us wakes up. He's got 2 other doctors working for him now. The business has tripled in revenue. He's got more new patients than he can understand. His net worth went up over $2 million. Like it's amazing, his ROI. And the other guy, disappears from the workshop. I don't even see him. I think I run into him, I want to say 24 months, maybe even 36 months after that initial workshop. 2 different people who decided to take a different path. So I come up to this guy and said, hey man, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in 2 to 3 years. Well, you didn't engage with us. Tell me how things have went. And this person said to me, he said, well, I mean, not much has changed. And I said, well, how many new patients you got coming into the practice per month? He said, well, probably, I don't know, 2, 3. And I'm like, 2 or 3? And I was like, look, you've got 2 or 3 patients leaving per month, which means his practice is probably in decline. And this guy's in his 30s. And so I was like, man, well, now's a good time to engage. If you haven't found the system or you haven't found what's going to work for you, then it's time to engage. It's time to get going. I don't do what I do for money. I do what I do because I love people and want to take care of them. And so I'm like, okay, now's the time. And yet he was a leave me. He was like, I'm good. I'm good with life. And my entire team, it just blew our minds, right? We had 2 people on the same path who had dramatically different results. Abundance versus scarcity. One person said, if I engage with Tower Leadership, what would I get? The other person said, if I engage with Tower Leadership, what will it cost? I mean, I'm talking totally different paths. What path are you on? And what changes do you need to make? What are the changes that you need? And by the way, I don't care where you're at. There's not a person I've ever sat down in a coaching meeting and I looked at and said, you're good. It doesn't matter where you are. One of the greatest things that ever said to me, I remember having this meeting years back. And I was sitting down with a mentor and we were having this conversation. I was telling him, like, I was in this group and I'm like the most successful person in the group. And I'm like almost bragging. And I'm not, if anyone who knows me, I'm not an egomaniac. I don't overly brag about myself, but this was a mentor and I was kind of a mentoring relationship. And I said, look, I'm in this group and I'm the most successful person in this group. And I've done this and I've done that. And I was kind of, and he looked at me for a moment and he said, that means you're in the wrong group. And he was like, if you ever wake up and you're the most successful person in your group, you're in the wrong group and you haven't challenged yourself. Look, this is about an evolution. It's a process. There will always be something else to go after. Now I want you to appreciate what you've built. And one of the greatest things that happened in this conversation with this gentleman was that had come into my life was that I was like, man, look what I've done. And it kind of really like woke me up to what I had done. And I was like, man, wow. Because sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for the work we do. And I was like, wow, what have I been able to do financially and with clients and physically and mentally? And, my life is in a completely different place than his. And it's because of all the hard work. Now, no matter where you are. Now, I will tell you, most of the poor me's aren't listening to this podcast. And see, that's the thing about poor me's. Poor me's aren't listening to this podcast because they're saying, well, I don't have time to listen to the podcast. My iPhone doesn't stream properly. I have a bad connection. All the other bullshit. And look, I don't try to use expletives on this podcast, but sometimes you need to just call bullshit. Because that's what will happen. You and I both know it. Is like the person will literally come up with all these reasons why they can't listen to this podcast, or they're going to listen to it after dinner, or they're going to listen to it. And they don't understand why they wake up and their life is not what they want it to be. Now, interestingly enough, most people listen to this podcast are change me's. They're transformative people because they can't get enough. They can't grow enough. They can't get enough information. They'll listen to 12 podcasts. They've got to completely take that in. So here's my challenge. I want to challenge you the same way I challenged this person. When I said to him, what is your next vision for your life? What is that you, stop talking about all this past. Let go of the past. What do you want your life to look like in the future? Don't tell me what you want. What does it look like? What does it look like? And then how does that 5-year vision turn into a 3-year vision, which means the 12-month vision, which is the 3-month vision, which is the 1-month vision, which is the 1-week vision. And it's how we get ourselves going, and we can make small changes to dramatically impact our lives. Because if you want to become a billionaire, I believe you can do it. I believe that anyone listening to this podcast can be a billionaire. Anybody listening to this podcast. And I believe that wholeheartedly. You just need a better story. You need a better story. You don't need better circumstances. This person was in the same circumstances I was in, and yet our lives turned out completely different. Doctors are typically in the same circumstances as every other doctor, but yet their life turns out differently. Circumstances do not change the way your life works out. Action changes the way your life works out, what you do, because those are the only things you have. The coronavirus and the economy and the patients, and it's all you got to work with. If you will change, everything will change for you. So when you start thinking about success and being successful, you have to say, what is it that I want life to look like? And if I will change, I can get it. Now, it might not be in 4 months, and it might be over a period of time. And what ends up happening, though, the period of time is you wake up and you're highly, highly successful. And by the way, it might take a decade to get where you want. But I'm telling you, you'll wake up a decade from now and be phenomenally wealthy with this amazing life and experience. I tell people, I'm like, listen, I've lost 50 pounds. And they're like, how quickly did you lose it? I said, 5 years. 5 years. I'm like, yeah. I eat in a way that I can maintain that because I care about my health, and I'm not trying to do something fad, because that's the problem. Everybody wants to lose it in 2 months. The thing about building a $10 million dental practice is when you've learned how to do it, you can multiply it in different industries. Nobody can ever take that knowledge away. The knowledge you get on this podcast, if you listen to this podcast, I would guarantee you that if you took just the one podcast, you don't listen to any other dental wealth podcast, you listen to this podcast and you listen to it every morning for 30 straight days, and by the way, you would hear something different every day. I guarantee you it would impact the way your life changes. I guarantee you would put plans into place. I guarantee you would wake up as a different person, because when you realize that and take that and write that down, if I will change, everything will change for me. But Eric, I'm already doing well. Why do I need to change? Because life is about growing. Life is about building. Life is about creating. It's about impacting. What changes do I need to make in my life to get me to the next level? Quit looking what other bozos are doing. And if you're like, if you wake up and you're like, listen, I hang out with 10 dentists and we're all successful and I'm the most successful one, then you're in the wrong group. Then go find 10 dentists to hang out with. Then you're the smallest producer. If you wake up and you're the most successful of all your dental friends, you need to go get a better group of friends if you want to be successful. Because those people aren't going to challenge you. They're not going to educate you. They're going to help you to grow. If it were me, I would be going out and finding 10 people that were more successful than I. See, that's how you end up moving this thing. And that's my challenge for you today. What's the next version of your life? What's the next version of you? What does that look like? What does he or she drive? Where does he or she live? Who is she impacting? And what changes need to be made in your life daily to get there? And what do you need to be involved in? Who do you need to invest in? By the way, if you're not investing heavily in yourself monetarily, you're making a gigantic mistake. There is no better return than you. But Eric, my 401k, my stock advisor tells me I need to put more money into my investment accounts. If you will change, your account balances will change. If you will change, your retirement income will change. If you will change, your net worth will change. If you will change, your marriage will change. If you will change, everything in your life will change. Everything will change if you'll make the changes. And it doesn't take an act of Congress. It might just take a run around the block. I do this podcast for one reason. Because I believe that there's so much potential locked inside the human spirit. I believe that we have become really good at being average. And average might be the average of our successful friends, but we've become damn good at being average. And the problem with being average is it's average. It's what the average person does. Now, your group might be a higher economic, socioeconomic group, but you're still average in that group. The truth is people have become good at being average, and they don't want to do the things that break outside of average because they'll be judged or they'll be commented on. But the truth is, if you will change, everything you will change in your life. What does that look like? And what is the next step? And you might say, Eric, I've got all the money I need. Fine. Then don't forget money for a minute. Then go have more impact. Or maybe it's time that you need for your kids, and how can you create more time to spend with your family or your spouse or whatever it is, or giving to your church or whatever it is for you. It doesn't have to be money. But you need to say and wake up, if I will change, everything will change for me. And it might not take a week, and it might not take a month, but over time, you'll wake up, and a decade from now, you won't even recognize who you were today. And like I said, I do this podcast because I want to see people live up to their full potential in life. And you have that ability. The idea of dental wealth is not this idea of just accumulation. It's this idea of living a wealthy life, and wealth means so many different things. I don't give a damn if you have $10 million in the bank, but you're miserable. Who cares? It's so much about all the things that come together. So if you will change, everything will change for you. And I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to do two things. I want to challenge you to do two things today. I want you to listen to this podcast again. I want you to give it a day or two or whatever, and I want you to go back and listen to it again. You're going to hear something you didn't hear the first time. I want you to listen to it again, because once you do that, you're going to hear different things. And if you need to listen to it 12th time, a 14th time, 100th time, every start of every month, I need you to listen to what I'm telling you. This is not a guy who just had a philosophy. It's a guy who's coached thousands of people into success and into wealth. And I'm telling you, I'm giving you the secret formula. And you need to go say, what's my next version of me? And what do I need to do to get there? And if I will change, everything will change. And I will attract the things I need to become. And then I want you to take this podcast. So step one is I want you to listen to it again, and how many times you need to listen to it to ingrain it in your mind that this is who you are. And second, I want you to share this podcast. I don't care who you share it with. Share it with your mom. Share it with your spouse. Share it with your brother. Share it with another dentist. It doesn't matter, by the way, if they're a dentist or non-dentist. You have to recognize at this point, this message has nothing to do with dentistry. So one of the greatest things is I want you to share it with that person, and I want you to talk about it. So this is the kind of like maybe three things. 1, listen to it again. 2, share it. 3, talk about it. By doing that, you'll start ingraining this stuff into your psyche. That you want to change, start having conversations about this. And if you do those 3 things, and the quick question for you, are you a serious student? Are you a serious student? Because if you're a serious student, you're going to do what I just told you to do. And that's the problem with average. Average people won't do it. Average people will listen to this podcast, go, I'm not going to do that. It sounds stupid. And they'll just move on. And I know it feels stupid sometimes, but you'll start to realize it's going to change who you are. If you will change, everything will change. Imagine now there's a little bit of like magic behind what I'm telling you to do, because by doing that, you're going to have a different conversation, and it's going to spark a different conversation. And what will happen is it will create other conversations, and then those conversations will attract other people, and then those other people will attract, and it works that way. I'm telling you, watch what happens. So take this information, listen to it again, share it with somebody else, and then get on the phone or meet with them for a cup of coffee. I want you to talk about this podcast, and I want you to talk about those changes that both of you can make. Share it with a group of people and get together and have a conversation. Hey, what does this mean? And what would this mean for us? And what does change mean? And what are the simple changes we can mean? What does my life look like a decade from now? And so many great things to talk about. And if you do that, everything else will change. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time.